Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com. Joined once again by Zane Simon for the UFC 204 Bisping versus Henderson 2 6-round post-fight show. And before we do anything else, I want to dedicate this episode, and really all future episodes, to the memory of Josh Mann. We had the honor and privilege of working with him at Bloody Elbow for all too brief a time, and just want to say, Godspeed to Josh and all his loved ones. Hopes, prayers, love, etc., etc. All right, on to the fights. Dan Henderson came so close to winning the UFC title, knocked Bisping down in the first round and the second round. Heard him again a couple more times, but could not do it. Bisping went to the unanimous decision, 48-47 on two cards, 49-46 on a third. Thoughts on the fight?
I mean, it was an amazing fight. I don't think, I didn't expect it to be that much fun because
No.
I was excited for it. I was tense for it, but I figured Dan Henderson would probably just get KO'd in a sad way that would make us all feel bad that it was his last fight. And for it to be this really amazing 5-round back and forth fight that he almost won, that's beautiful. And for, even on a loss, you cannot really end your career on a better note than that. I realize the belt would have meant a lot, but most dudes end their career. I mean, if Vitor Belfort actually is retiring, that's the loss most guys end their career on. Is
a
getting pounded out and crushed.
Yeah, and looking deflated and looking like a ghost to yourself. And Henderson, he's certainly had some bad performances in the past couple of years and looked very frail a couple times, but with that miraculous comeback against Hector Lombard, and now this very, very close to taking the title, and I mean, almost knocked out Michael Bisping in front of his hometown crowd in Manchester. Just, that had to have felt so good. And I think that Henderson got so excited that he put too much into trying to finish it right there.
Maybe. I don't even know that, at 46, how much of a gas tank was he ever going to have?
It's true, but he definitely burned a lot of energy and adrenaline going for the kill in that first round. And even if he had just been able to be a little calmer and more focused, he might have landed some of those big elbows he was throwing instead of throwing so many. But you really can't fault the performance. I mean, the guy's, like you said, 46 years old. He's been fighting since before the turn of the millennium. He's won every other major title in MMA except for the UFC belt. He's fought for the UFC title before. This was easily the closest he's come to winning. And, great fight, storied rivalry. And hats off to Michael Bisping, winning the title. We didn't expect him to, and now defending the title. Not the best Bisping we've ever seen, but it has to be very satisfying for him. He was talking after the fight about how he was frightened going into this, and who can blame him? I mean, I've seen guys around who've kicked my ass. Nobody's ever kicked my ass like Dan Henderson kicked his ass, but you see somebody that's done that to you, and you're like, whoa, and for him to get in there, to call him out, challenge him, and get in there. I mean, admittedly, it was not Dan Henderson's peak. There was a certain element of fight shopping when Bisping called him out, but at the same time, like Bisping said, the rest of the division is a bit in tatters, except for the winner of our co-main event, Gegard Mousasi.
Oh, and Gegard, yeah.
Yes, and Jacare definitely out there, but a great performance. I think easily Gegard Mousasi's best UFC performance, the best we've seen him since his fighting days in Dream a long time ago, beating Vitor Belfort TKO, second round, 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Some of those combinations Mousasi threw were lightning quick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that, 400,000 punch combo that he lit Belfort up at the end there with was lovely to see.
Yes.
He looked good. I mean, and, that's coming off a good dominating KO win over Thiago Santos, too, last time out. And, partially, I'm really impressed with Mousasi. Partially, it's also the last time Vitor Belfort won a fight in the second round was Michael Bisping. Last time before that was Terry Martin in 2008.
Yeah. I mean, Belfort obviously has some limitations. But the thing is, Mousasi's problem has, for a long time, been a freezing, unwillingness to pull the trigger, and he definitely pulled the trigger tonight. And that we have not seen that kind of. I mean, I have not seen him throw combinations like that in a long, long time. I mean, that was
Yeah.
nice work.
It is. I mean, partially too, that may be down to the fact that most, like, Musasi is very much a fighter who he needs you to give him a big opening and he'll exploit it. And a lot of the guys he's fought in the UFC, they just don't give him much. They're either very cautious and just wait and don't try to stay away from him, or they've been technically better than him. They've been able to outwork him in, out
Yeah,
wrestle him, out grapple him, or outstrike him, and that's been a problem for him. So Belfort is exactly the right kind of glass cannon who is going to give Musasi a lot to work with, really open himself up. And Musasi is also impossible to finish, or nearly, except for that
yeah,
Uriah
very
Hall
difficult.
freakishness.
Yeah, and Belfort really looked like a shadow of himself. I mean, you can really tell he has not been on the same chemical diet he was when he was on TRT replacements, and
I would actually
his
say, I mean, he didn't look great, but he fought pretty much like I thought this was about as he didn't look he didn't fight like he had lost a step. That still looked like the same Belfort to me as always.
well, I don't know. I thought he looked a little more tentative, and he fired off what 1, 2 blitzes, and just never connected. I don't know. To me, he looked pretty diminished. He didn't look god awful. His physique looked pretty
Yeah, his physique
tubby.
looked pretty diminished, but I mean, I don't know. Belfort, like the story of Belfort's always been, I threw one or two blitzes, they didn't work. I'm just gonna fall apart now. So
Yes, other than the armbar against John Jones and a few other things, but yeah, I was enjoying Musasi winning because I've not been a Vitor Belfort fan for a long time. So, but it is definitely the end of an era in MMA if Vitor Belfort is retiring, and particularly if Dan Henderson and Vitor Belfort are retiring. This is a historic event because both of those guys have had very big impacts in the sport, and frankly were legends of multiple eras in the sport. And
yeah.
and so much respect to both of those guys, and big props to Gegard Mousasi and Michael Bisping for beating him. Then you had lightweight Jimmy Manuwa beat Ovin St. Preux. OSP came out fairly strong, but Manuwa figured him out and lit him up in the second round. 2 minutes, 38 seconds TKO for Manuwa. I think his most impressive win in the UFC.
Oh, absolutely, man. It was most impressive win in the UFC, most impressive win of his career, frankly. I mean, he's never beat somebody as good as OSP, and he really looked like a more complete fighter out there in this fight. He looked like somebody who had a plan for how to deal with the wrestling game, deal with the pressure game, and who was working with a few more tools than normal. I mean, kind of my big criticism, man, was been that for as powerful and as sharp, as technical as he is, he really limits himself to a very few techniques.
Yeah.
And he looked diverse enough here to to absolutely take OSP apart. And for OSP, I mean, he's kind of, I don't know.
He trains
It's
in the
an
gym in
interesting.
Knoxville. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
long since been time for him to move up to a top flight gym, and he has gotten. I mean, he's done very well. He's fought John Jones. He hasn't fought for the title, but
Not for the earned title.
yeah, and so, but he really has stalled out for a guy with that much talent. You're not seeing the kind of development, and I don't know how much more he could develop. I mean, he started pretty late in life as a combat sports athlete, but I think that a top flight gym could have brought him along much
Yeah,
better.
I mean, at this point, we're kind of looking at OSP being at a point in his career where he should be the fighter he is, and he's been this fighter for a little while. And it's a huge, great athlete who's really tough and has never really had any technical tools.
No,
Is being huge, athletic, and really tough, and having the speed and power and size and timing and all the other X factors. Like, he has every X factor, and then is missing all the technique that would then make somebody. And he's still been a top 5 light heavyweight. I mean,
yeah,
that's really a
ranked.
testament to just how much that all those X factors can mean.
And Manoa ranked number 8 going into this fight, beating the number 5 guy. You think he's going to jump, but this is a guy who historically has had difficulties leaving the UK to fight. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the UFC decides to do. Every previous attempt, or every previous time they've given him a really big fight, he's come up short. Like Gustafsson beat him, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a big win for Manawa and a bit of a challenge for the UFC as insofar as how to manage that.
Well,
Going
fortunately for them, he's only fought Manawa and Johnson in the top. So fights, depending on how it shakes out, fights with Bader, fights with, the loser of Jones Cormier or something like that. If they do that fight again, or he's got these other options out there at the top of the division that even if he's not going to win them, they're going to at least be big fights for him. They're going to be fights that will get him in front of a lot of people, get him known, get him seen.
Provided he can get a visa and get in the U.S. It's
I
they
think recently the trouble's been that he's gotten hurt, but I'm not sure.
okay.
I think that's been
Yeah,
a bigger problem lately.
we'll see. But and looking at the rankings of the light heavyweight division, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at, and you're talking about a division where Antonio Rogerio Nogueira is still ranked number 9, and Nikita Krylov of all people is number 10 with the bullet. So
Shogun is number 6 still.
yes, and Rashad Evans is number 7. I mean,
And Rashad Evans isn't even a light heavyweight anymore.
no. And so this division has become a bit of a ghost town. But let's go back to middleweight a little bit. And look, Gegard Mousasi was ranked number 9 going into this. He just beat the number 5 guy, Vitor Belfort. I got to say, Jacare and Gegard are the two guys I want to see Bisping fight for the title. I agree with his assessment of Rockhold and Chris Weidman and Yoel Romero, too. These are all guys who are at least a couple wins away from a title shot.
Well, the thing that's going to be a problem for somebody like Mousasi is that all the top middleweights are currently booked in number 1 contender fights. This is going to be a problem for everyone. So, not only, Mousasi and Belfort just fought. Weidman's going to fight Romero. Winner of that could have a claim to a title shot. Rockhold's fighting Jacare. Winner of that could have easy claim to a title shot. And, and even Derek Brunson's fighting Robert Whitaker. And all these people are already booked up. And these fights are all going to put them on streaks and give them claims to top contendership.
I bet you they give Mousasi the winner of the Whitaker Brunson fight because those are the guys right above him in the rankings, and also like him, they're fairly low profile, and they don't want to get somebody in the money lane like Rockhold and Weidman. They don't want to get Mousasi or Whitaker or Brunson all over that and drag that down. Although, looking at our web traffic tonight and looking at we had people tweet in pictures from the bars they watched the fights at, and
it was weirdly split. Half of them were packed, and the other half were dead empty.
And I think that a lot of that had to do with geography, and a lot of those people, like New Zealand, the guy in this bar in New Zealand was packed. I was even wondering what time of day is it in New Zealand that. But yeah, so that was pretty curious. There was a real dichotomy, and the traffic was respectable, and I expect this will do pretty good for a non-Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey pay-per-view in our current era, but that means about 250, 350,000 pay-per-view buys, which is not, there was a time when Bisping versus Henderson would have sold a lot more pay-per-views.
Yeah, it could have been like 500,000 at one point, maybe 7 if it was if they'd really stacked the card under it.
Yeah, and really hyped it up. But still, it's sort of a storybook ending for Bisping's career to get the title shot, defend the title, to win the title, get the title defense in Manchester. It was something they were desperately trying to hook up in 2007. And at this point, I don't even know if they have any interest in the UK market anymore. You're not hearing WME talk about international expansion as one of their big priorities here. It's much more about getting the fighters into Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, UK has always been a weird market for MMA. It seems like it's poised to finally be kind of the home market that it was always supposed to be around the UFC. Like Cage Warriors is back. Bama has finally started putting on every month decent shows that have a bunch of notable talent. And so there are finally some big shows that are continually producing in ways that it just, that have never seemed stable there. But yeah, as for the UFC's interest, I don't know. It's always kind of
Ever
it
since
seems.
they spent a fortune there in 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
and have since retreated pretty hard. And Bisping's failure to win a title until just now has been part of that retreat. But let's finish running through the card because there are some English prospects that did very well way
Hmm.
down there, and I want to talk about them. But first, heavyweight Stefan Struve beat Daniel Emelianenko with a Darce choke, second round, minute 21. Again, Struve, 6'11", no idea what a jab is or a push kick. Like
Well,
it's
I mean, I don't know that that would have ever helped him any, honestly. Like as much as we want to harp about how like oh big guys should be rangy, so many big guys in MMA find better success being great clinch fighters where they can leverage it there.
it's true. It's
If
true.
you're an awkward, orange on a toothpick, then trying to keep people outside all the time where they can plug you with a huge overhand may not never be your best strategy.
It's true. And Struve again won the fight on the ground, and so
Omalanchuk tried to wrestle and grapple with him, and I have no idea. He tried to hip toss a 7 foot tall man like three
yes,
times. How
yes,
how are you going to
th-
hip toss that dude? Like where?
yeah.
How are you going to create that leverage at
That
all?
was I think that was just muscle memory.
Yeah.
Doing that. It's very frustrating. So Struve, came into the fight at number 12 in heavyweight, beat the number 14 guy. I don't know who's he fight next. I mean, he's not going to rematch Roy Nelson. I don't see that.
No, no, he's not going to rematch Roy Nelson. The top of the division's pretty wide open right now, so um, he could fight the win. I mean, he could fight the winner of Derek Lewis versus Marcin Tybura, which, if it's Derek Lewis, would be all kinds of bad news.
For Stefan Struve and his friends and family, yes, that
He
would.
could fight Ruslan Magomedov when he gets back from suspension. That would be actually a pretty. That was the fight this was supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
What about Francis Ngannou? Has he got anybody booked?
Ngannou, no, he doesn't, and that would also be kind of murderous for Stefan
Yeah,
Struve.
but I mean, it's a tough sport. So sorry, Stefan.
It's true. Otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of dudes he's already fought in there.
Yeah,
Um, I would
and
actually be interested a little in seeing him take on like a Josh Barnett or Andrei Arlovsky.
yeah,
Honestly,
I wouldn't mind seeing those fights. That would be a fight I would be comfortable with. Although I don't know that it gets anybody anywhere. And
no.
then in the opener, you had featherweight Mirsad Bektic beat short notice substitute Russell Doan, first round submission rear naked choke, 4 minutes 22 seconds. I mean, dominant performance, but frustrating for Bektic and everybody else because it's not the fight he trained for, not the opponent he wanted, and you know. He did what he was supposed to do. He beat the 5 days notice guy who was coming in off what, three straight losses. So
Hmm. And
um,
moving up a division, so.
yeah, yeah. So Doan will, you would hope, either gets a big backroom bonus or one more chance at the UFC because he definitely did them a solid and in a no-win situation for him. Then in the Fox Sports One prelim card, in the headliner, you had bantamweight Yuri Alcantara basically annihilate Brad Pickett. He won with the triangle choke submission at minute 59, but this was definitely a case where he beat him up on the feet first, and Pickett is just, frankly, pretty close to shot, I think.
Well, he said I mean he's retiring. That was the
Yeah,
plan.
and
So
that is happy news
yeah,
because,
it makes you feel a little too bad that like after that last fight where he said, "Oh, if I'd lost this fight, I was gonna retire," and he won it, and it's just like, well, maybe then you should retire. Like I'm not gonna
yeah,
say you should retire, but if you're thinking about it that heavily, then go out on a win. Why not? Because
yeah,
otherwise, the next thing out is this. This is what waits on the other side.
yeah, yeah. And, I don't know that it gets Yuri Alcantara anywhere, but
It
wipes.
might get him back in the top 15, right at the board. He's in that division. The edges of the top 15 at bantamweight are still pretty thin. Let me see who's the 15th ranked bantamweight right now. It's Ronnie Yaya. So
Yeah,
this would get
so
him ranked above Ronnie Yaya or Takea Mizugaki.
yeah, Mizugaki coming off a loss, so that would be quite possible. And then you had bantamweight Damian Stasiak upset Davy Grant, armbar submission, third round, 3 minutes 56 seconds. Not a scintillating bout, and Grant really thought he was going to win and did not pull it off.
I enjoyed the fight. I mean, I thought it was a hell of a comeback from Stasiak.
Well, that is very true. That is very true. But
It just got Grant. Like I remember, I watched his fights and I was like, he's way more powerful. He's bigger. He's stronger. He hits harder. He's not a terrible grappler or wrestler, but he has this really horrible habit of giving up positions all the time when he scrambles and when he's on the mat. And man, was that just like that is apparently a much bigger problem even than I thought it was because he let Stasiak run ragged over him every time that fight hit the ground. And finally, he took him down. I was like, Grant should actually probably just stand up here because he's been horrible on the mat so far and he got armbarred.
yeah, yeah, and that's always historically been the bane of English fighters is the ground game. Then you had welterweight Leon Edwards beat Albert Tumanov submission rear naked choke in the third round, 3 minutes 1 second. Edwards just dominated Tumanov. I mean, a lot of people wanted to see a big striking match between two skilled strikers, and Edwards said, "Well, you know what? I'm a much better grappler. I'm just going to take this thing to the ground." And
Yeah, this is a weird bout because Edwards, first of all, I mean, he looked awesome at the start, and then he gassed in a way that was like really kind of surprising considering he'd been dominating the fight so far.
yeah, but I think sometimes that when you're dominating that kind of fight, that is more expensive.
It can be, but it's also, I mean, it's bad because he's had problems with his gas tank in almost every fight, win or lose, and it's not good to see somebody like not only losing and getting tired, but winning and getting tired.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
especially in a low altitude environment like Manchester. I mean, there's no
yeah, but
excuse
it
for it.
really makes me wonder, like, what's the long term view on Albert Tumanov because he started like he looks just like he's too limited to win at a really high level. If all you're going to be really good at is boxing, people are just going to work around it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fairly easy problem to solve. Yeah, I don't know what the ceiling on Tumanov looks like. He might have hit it already. But let's speak of more fun things. Lightweight Mark Kessie beat Lucas Sajewski, second round TKO, 4 minutes 40 seconds. People are excited about this kid, and for good reason. He is fast and stylish. He rushed in and got himself on his back on the ground. He's definitely got some holes to fill in his game, but I would
He's
say
an
hot
insane
prospect.
athlete.
Yes, just really gifted and one of the more exciting English fighters we've seen emerge in a long time. So that was a nice big win.
Yeah, I really loved seeing that. I was, he fought really bad and still got a win. So hopefully that's exactly the kind of prospect win that really makes him go and work harder on solving things and be more patient. Don't rush in and throw your body at somebody because he kind of started out fighting a Sayevsky like Sayevsky could not possibly hurt him or beat him.
Yeah,
And
or do anything
Sayevsky,
to him. And if he had done that against his scheduled opponent, Reza Madadi, he would have lost that fight,
yeah, he would
and
have.
and possibly badly. And
Yeah,
and and so I hope the kid's smart enough to realize, wow, I could have, if I
yeah,
had not been fighting a short notice substitute, I could easily have lost that fight. So, um, yeah, we'll see. But nonetheless, I'm excited about the kid, and it was fun to see him. Then
yeah.
in the two-fight UFC Fight Pass prelims, you had welterweight Mike Perry knock out Danny Roberts in the third round, 4 minutes 40 seconds. This was a very fun fight. I'm not a Mike Perry fan
It
for
was.
various reasons, so I was really rooting for Danny Roberts, and he took a beating early, came back, almost beat Mike Perry, but Perry got it handed to him. He took a beating too, and came back even harder and won the fight in the third round.
This is one of those things too where like I get the feeling a lot of Perry may be an underdog in a lot of fights, or he's gonna have a lot of people rooting heavily against him just because of his personality. Like there are a
Yes,
lot of people who really want to dismiss him as a fighter because it's hard to give him credit as a person,
yes,
and that's too bad for him because he's a hell of a talent. Like the gifts are obviously there. He's really really tough. He's really powerful and fast and has a great fighter's mentality. Pressures really well and he is And I really like how basic and functionally basic his game is for somebody who has very little technical depth to what he does. He knows that and fights that way. He
Yeah.
doesn't just go out there and do a bunch of stupid shit that gets him hurt really badly. He just tries a few simple things that he knows how to do, and he does them over and over again. Um,
Yeah, and he doesn't get himself into spots. He doesn't do stupid stuff that takes a fight out of where he wants it to be. You
yeah,
don't see him forcing the clinch or going for takedowns or stupid stuff that could cause him trouble. So, and for Danny Roberts, I mean, really gutsy performance.
yeah, he's a really fun. He's got the technique. He's fun. He's an action fighter. He may not be quite big enough or powerful enough to be a welterweight, even though he's 6 foot. Like he's stretched out pretty well, but
Yeah, it
he,
could be very hard for him to cut down to lightweight as well. So he might be kind of betwixt and between. Then in the
yeah,
opener, you had lightweight Leonardo Santos edge out Adriano Martin split decision in a really tedious fight. That just why are you flying two Brazilians to England for this? It was just
yeah,
you
it
know
was a terrible fight. I'm not sure why it was on this card. I don't even know that it would have been any better at home. Frankly,
no it had. There's always been a stink when two Brazilian grapplers get together that they're just going to put on a bad kickboxing match and half-ass it, and that was definitely the case in this one. But let's talk about fun things. Michael Bisping, Dan Henderson, that was a fight. If somebody comes to me and says, "What is a fight?" I would say that is a fight. It's not the greatest fight, but it's a very, very good fight.
it's an awesome fight. It's got all the narrative behind it, all the drama, and it was a great action fight all the way through. Fun, edge of your seat, and probably the best thing is that it absolutely keeps the narrative of Michael Bisping's like jerk off title reign, where he just like squeaks by Dan Henderson, this aged power punching guy who seemed over the hill, just squeaks by him. He gets to crow about it, and you can be sure he will crow about it. While
Indeed,
everybody
indeed.
else is going, "Oh my God, why did we let this dude be champion?" They're all turning, like Jacare this week is saying, "Luke Rockhold, this is your fault." And they're all just going to be thinking that the whole time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Rockhold and Jacare and Weidman too. I think felt
Yeah,
like they were the elite of the division that Bisping had been passed by. It's only been a year or so ago that I was saying on this show that Bisping would never be champion because he lost some big fight, and I thought that was it. And he fluked
yeah.
his way into the title shot, and then seized the moment and made the most of the opportunity against an admittedly underprepared, overconfident Luke Rockhold. So, again, hats off, much respect to Michael Bisping. Although we haven't mentioned the groin shot he got away with. He kicked Hendo in the groin twice. First one wasn't called. Later was warned. That's exactly the sort of thing that Hendo, as a good founding member of Team Quest, is going to be bitching about post fight. I guarantee you, Hendo will be all over the place saying, "I thought I won that fight."
Oh, of course, and he should. I mean, he nearly knocked Michael Bisping out. He should feel like he won it. Like I say, I think if you're Dan Henderson, outside of actually getting the belt put around your waist, this is the best possible way you can go out. It
Yeah,
may not be a win, but it's going to feel like a win to him.
he knows who hurt who, and he knows
Yeah,
that he hurt Bisping a lot more than Bisping hurt him. I mean, Bisping rattled him a couple times, but he did not bust his face up. He did
he
not
didn't
put him on
drop
his
him ever.
ass.
And Dan Henderson has
Yeah.
not been that hard to drop lately.
No, no. The thing is, it seems like the collisions that have caused Henderson to drop have been more on the inside. Lombard had those vicious short hooks that could catch him on the chin. And Henderson, did a better job of keeping his guard up on that right side of the chin that Brian Stan was talking about throughout the fight. But also, Bisping's fighting at a little bit further range than the people that have really been annihilating Hendo.
Well, he's also, I think Musasi just kind of clipped him once and he went down and stuff like that. It's all dependent on the shots for Hendo. And I think the big thing with this, a lot of it is that Bisping, as he talked about, he was, really, really nervous about this fight. And he approached it in a very nervous way, and probably rightfully so. He was on the back foot for everything. He was making sure that he didn't commit to anything because the moment he did get confident, the moment he did commit, he got dropped really hard.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And so, yeah, again, a pretty storied night in MMA history. You got Dan Henderson's last fight, possibly, and likely Vitor Belfort's last fight. So these are both guys who fought back in the 1990s, who've both fought for many of the Pride belts, UFC belts. Tons of great fights, great rivalries. You put out a tree of all the people that Dan Henderson and Vitor Belfort have fought, and it is a tapestry of the who's who, the greatest in MMA history. So that's our show. Anything else you want to add about UFC 204?
No, I'm just really glad it happened through all the bitching and all the moaning that fans did. I'm really glad we got this fight. It was a lot of fun, and Michael Bisping as middleweight champion continues to be weird and super fun.
Yes, it has, and look forward to more of it. So, thanks, Zane Simon. Follow us on Twitter at the Zane Simon, at Kid Nate. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, and don't miss an episode. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. You can get the audio without the ugly. Eugene will be here tomorrow with Knuckle Up. Next week we'll have the If I Did It, the Care Don't Care. Actually, we won't have the Care Don't Care or MMA Vivisection because we don't have any UFCs next weekend, do we?
Nope.
Yep, because Lamas versus Penn and Manila got canceled. So, but we will have If I Did It. And Zane, you'll have some extra shows next week, I presume?
I think we're going to be doing the MMA Depresstus, where we are talking about some of the worst fights we can find.
And that sounds like good fun.
Yeah, one really, really boring fight. Well, like Santos Martins fight, one technically god-awful fight, and then one fight that was supposed to be amazing and ended up terrible.
The bad taste in the mouth fight. Well, that sounds like fun. And I'll be gone this week, so I'll have guests on If I Did It and the rest of those shows. So, adios, MMA aficionados. This is Kid Nate. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Zane.